see me on? Okay, good. Okay, so let's see what we want this guy to look like. Let's do like a red painted paint on here. So if we do, well, these are just our basic materials in here. So if we wanted to do, let's see what aluminum, we can either drag a material out and drop it, and that'll give me an aluminum brushed fill layer. Or if you already have a fill layer created, you can just select that fill layer, and then you can just go through here and just single click on, like, here's metal 06, and that'll go ahead and just fill that fill layer with all the properties of that metal there. Yeah, let's let this catch up. I don't know if it's going to be slow because I'm streaming or what. And plus I'm on a laptop, so that doesn't help. So on this fill layer, I can just do steel. Let's see how steel looks. That looks pretty cool. So let's say a steel is going to be our base, a nice dark steel. So you can kind of look through here. You'll also notice as we go through here, you're going to see there's some seams on here. Let's take this and we'll do triplanar projection and see if that helps a little bit. Because a lot of the stuff we're going to be doing is going to be painting across my crappy seams, which again, I don't care that much about. But if you want to alleviate some of those problems, you can try using triplanar projection for all this stuff. And this has kind of built-in dirt and stuff, which I'm not thrilled about, but that's okay. So if you want to go in here to your fill layer on the base color here, you can go in here and change the roughness. So if we want to do like a really matte steel, we could go ahead and we could go really smooth, and that's going to be a darker value. So your roughness, the darker it is, the shinier it is, and then the lighter it is, the more matte it will be. So let's see, let's look at my reference here. And also what we want to do is I want to make this area in here dark, like it goes to just a recessed area. I didn't build back in there very far. Unfortunately, I might have to just do a fill layer that's black. So we'll just go, instead of doing an aluminum brush, what I'm going to do is just kill that fill layer. I'm going to add a new fill layer. And on this fill layer, I'm going to make a base color that's black, and I'm going to make it super rough, and height and everything else I'm going to leave alone. And that's just going to give me like just a void texture here. And what we're going to do is go add a black mask, and then I can either choose those polygons, or I can try doing, yeah, that'll probably be the easiest thing. So I'm going to go over here to my polygon selection, and I'm just going to paint these triangles in here with that. And there we go. So that was kind of recessed back in there. Let's think about what the cap color I want, and if we want to do some painted metal over here. So if we go in here and just on the materials, we do like a paint search. There's car paint. Let's go to our smart materials here, and smart materials are usually just a collection of materials, layered materials up with like masks in between them to kind of give you that look. Let's go ahead and let these things populate. I don't know why it's being so slow tonight. Oh, good point. Let's see if I can, I might be too in the way. Put my face up here. So now, okay, we're letting these things kind of sub in here. Just generating thumbnails. It's been a long time since I've actually been in here in Textured and Painter at home, so maybe that's part of the reason I upgraded and or updated it and I didn't actually go in here. So let's see what we got in here. Let's get down here to the steels, let these populate. I'll start dropping those in and we can start discussing smart materials and all the cool stuff those can be used for. Alright, well maybe I don't want to work for those. So let's go steel dark, stain, steel gun, there it goes. And you can go to, if you go to share.allegorithmic.com, there's a lot of things you can just, like I've got a T800 metal in here we'll drag out and we'll see how that looks. A lot of really cool things that people have made that you can use. Here's a cool weapon metal. We'll see how this thing looks. I'll just drag this out. And I can just drag it to the top, and this is going to be a folder full of, again, different layered materials. Cool. So this is like all dinged up and kind of super cruddy, and that actually looks a lot like my original reference, which was just like a sago and rice canister here. And if you miss anything to Zoomy, just go to my YouTube channel and we'll get you caught back up. So we have this thing here, and this is actually looking pretty cool. Let's go and look what's in here. So we have our base steel, and then we have some color noise on top, and then we have surface detail, which is where all those dings are coming in. If those are a little bit much, you can go into that folder and kind of see, okay, here's the surface dings. You can either go through here and you can UV scale them so that, wow, this on a fill layer. Let's see. So we kind of blurred them and then made the grunge map. So we go to this fill layer grunge map here. We can scale this in or out and kind of just tile them more so they're smaller. You can also go in here if you don't want them to create so much damage. If we go to this here, we can go and see what's turned on. So color, metal, roughness, and height is turned on. If you turn the height off, it'll just get rid of the height altogether. You can also go in here to the height slider and you can kind of dumb those down, or you can make them pop out if you want to. So you can kind of just dial in a little less noise, and then the damage here is fine. The big dents going through here I think are a little bit much here, so I'm going to change the height value of these ones just to kind of get some slight denting maybe, and then maybe we'll even scale this. It's going to be this thing, isn't it? Yeah, it's just going these clouds. We'll take these clouds and we'll UV scale them up just a bit, just to make the dents smaller. And that'll make the scale look bigger too. If the dents are really huge, it's going to make it look like a little tiny thing. Which maybe that's what we're going for. So now we we got the surface detail here. We've got folder 2, which is rust. Rust I'm going to want to be possibly more global than that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this folder 2 out. I'm going to pop it to the top here. And we'll just rename this rust. And we'll maybe use that later, but I'm going to turn it off for now. And then here's what's controlling the roughness, which is fine. There's dirt built in, which we'll go do dirt over the top as well. But that's good enough for me. We'll drag this one up to the top here, and that'll be just our, we'll call that our visor fill. Shoot, I'll take it. I'll take anything that makes my job easier. For sure. And oops. So when I drag these out, let's go ahead and go to that mask here, and we'll go, and now we're going to make this a black color, and we'll just paint out all those things. When I drag through it, just drag through the whole object. Good enough. Okay, so we've got that. We've got some metal, we've got some rust. Underneath the weapon metal, we had just kind of like smooth, shiny metal. So what I can do is, let's make weapon metal. All right, let's right-click weapon metal. Now this is a big folder of stuff. So if I go in here and then I do add mask color selection, we can go through and we can kind of pick where we want that to show up. Let's say, let's see, we'll pick the arms here because we're going to do the body and I think painted here. So all the rough and tumble stuff, we'll do like the arms and then this little under chassis here. And the legs are all part of that color too. And then the other stuff we'll leave alone. So let's see if there's a, okay, there is a steel painted in here. What we might try, here's another steel painted clear coat, which I don't necessarily want. All right, let's drag steel painted out. And this one I want to be on the body here. So I'm going to right click, add mask with color selection, pick, and we'll do that. Now this steel painted here, I think has a, so here's the paint, which I'm mostly interested in. And then this is being driven by this MG mask editor. So if we go over here to our global balance and pull that down, boy, that's really doing a number on our wear here. So I'm going to kill that and get rid of that warp here. So let's say our paint isn't showing up at all because it's a black mask. So here it is, our paint with a white mask here. So if we want to wear those edges down, what we need to do is let's just do a quick, we'll add a generator here. And I don't use generators that much anymore, but we'll just try metal edge wear here. And then we'll go to invert. And now if we take that wear level down, we can kind of go through here and that'll kind of dictate where that wear level is going to go. It's a really, really harsh red. So I'm going to take this and I can actually sample. Let's see if it'll sample all the way over here. So we've got a can over here I'm looking at. got like a faded red. See if we can get that to work a little bit better. And let's go back to our metal edge wear. And again, we're working at, go into our texture set settings at the very top. We're working at 2048 right now, so that's probably the resolution. I'm losing a lot of resolution because this guy isn't mirrored, and I didn't do a tremendous job on his UVs, obviously. Let's just really wear the heck out of this guy. So we'll go ahead and just crank up that wear here. And you can see as it gets worn, it's actually got a little bit of height to it. Just a tiny bit of height. So if I go down to 0, let's see if we crank that up here. Yeah, that'll really start popping out that wear here. So we'll leave a little bit of height on there, I suppose. And then oil stains and stuff we'll do as well. And we can also drag our rust back to the top here. And we can also drag in some dirt, and we need to bring our visor up here again. So let's go into that paint here, and let's change that roughness a little bit here. And if we want to kind of splotchy up that paint, let's see what kind of paint stuff they get. So they do have the base color black and white spots. That's just kind of adding some black and white noise. But if you want to, let's do another fill layer here, and we'll call this splotchy red here, and we'll just do add a fill. And on this fill layer, we're going to go into our procedurals here, and we'll do black and white spots 2 as our base color. And we can go ahead and also, let's go, instead of UV projection, we'll do triplanar, and that'll, you see how it kind of made, if we do UV projection, as soon as it hits a seam, it starts getting another pattern, and I've got those seams right here. So just do triplanar, and that'll use, that'll go make sure that these procedural textures go across your seams without doing anything funky. And then we'll do, above this thing, we'll do add a filter. And on here we'll do filter gradient, and that's going to basically take all the white values and all the dark values of that black and white spots and fill them with 2 different colors. Now the first thing I'm going to do with this fill is I'm only going to affect the color channel, and then on the gradient, same thing. I only want to affect the color channel here. So right now we have white and black. So if I change this from like this color red to, you know, we'll do that color red again. It's going to look very the same, but then you can kind of just dial in lighter or darker reds for both of these things and kind of get a different look. And I'll kind of make it splotchier. And of course, you can always change your blending levels as well. So if you don't want the splotchy red, so we have base color selected here, so you can kind of do instead of normal, you can try like multiply over or overlay or screen. Just kind of go through here and try some of those, or you can just drop the opacity down completely. Now, because this should be in here, paint, I'm going to drop this down below. Let's just drop that into that folder. That'll drop it at the bottom of the folder here. And, oh yeah. And on splotchy red, I only want it to be color and wear through here. But yeah, this MG middle edge wear. So this needs to go over that, but this needs to control both of these. So what I'm going to do is kill this, and we'll call this, we'll delete, remove that mask. I'm going to take both of these, and I'm going to put them in their own folder. We're going to call this paint all. So now I can have my splotchy red paint over my other paint there, and then under paint all, I'm going to add a black mask, and then put in our generator. There we go. Add a generator, and then we'll just drop our, again, middle edge wear in there. And then we'll invert that. Kind of play with that wear level. So now we can have our splotchy red, and our wear will go to all of our paint that we want to. Cool. I'll go check it out. And let's see here. Oh, I guess I have a window open already. So what's next? So we got our painted guy here, and he's got some wear on him, and we're going to put some dirt on him eventually. We're going to put some rust on him. I'm not sure if I dig that red color, so let's try. I'm going to turn that off, and let's go in here, and we'll try just some different stuff here. Because, yeah, the paint's kind of, you know what, let me look at some of the you know, and we might just need to break him up with some decals and stuff like that too. We'll play with that. Because he doesn't have a whole lot of interesting stuff going on through here, so he kind of just ends up being kind of samey, plainy looking, which I'm not digging. But while we're thinking about it, let me also go in here to our steel painted, and we'll add a mask. Oops, we already have a mask with the color selection. We're going to pick this, and we're also going to pick his feet and his hands. That'll kind of help a little bit, I think. Okay, so we've got that. If we did want to just drop some dirt on this guy, let's go do a fill layer at the top here. We'll call this dirt. And let's go ahead. Now, if you didn't, just FYI, if you didn't want this fill layer to inherit the underlying height information, so you wanted to cover it with very thick paint or something, you could go in here. You should be able to go in here to your height, and then change this from a linear dodge to replace, and that'll go ahead and kill any underlying height. You can also throw it in a folder and have that folder assigned to replace as well. But for dirt, that should probably be fine. I forget what the default is for that, so let's make a new fill layer here. So by default, height is set to linear dodge. So we'll go back to base color here. So dirt is usually something like this, and you could do, if you want to make it a little more visually interesting, you could go in here to add a fill layer, go over here and do like black and white spots 3 as your base color, and then above that fill layer, and now of course you want to do triplanar again, and then above that fill layer, let's just do a filter. And for that filter, we're going to choose a gradient, and in that gradient, we're going to do like dark brown, and the gradient we just want to apply to our color, obviously. And then for this one, we'll select that brown, and we'll make it slightly different, just so at least you get a little bit of breakup in your colors here. Now, sometimes that's more trouble than it's worth, but another thing you can do is you can add another gradient. So if you don't want to, if those colors are fine, but you just want to tweak the hue and not have to go in there to both things, you can add another filter, which again is just, we would just want to control the color. Now, if you turn all these things off and then you grab a filter, I think it's going to get rid of them. But we'll do a hue, saturation, and levels, and we'll turn all these off again. And then what we should be able to do is change the overall hue of both of those at the same time. So you can kind of tweak that, and also like the saturation if you want to turn the saturation down or the lightness. So instead of going back in there and playing with your gradient, just, or your, the fill, then those two gradient colors, just use hue, saturation above that to just control the color of those. You can also do it on your entire object. So I'll show you that in a bit. So we'll do dirt. If you want to do an entire hue shift of all the base colors in your entire scene, you can do that as well with a filter. Let me move these over here. And let me check my Facebook here. Internet's being slow. Boom, got it. I'll load this up. So now if I go into the folder where he sent me an SBSAR, which is basically, you have an SBS file, it's a substance file, and then you have an SBSAR, which is, if you go to my YouTube channel, you can watch the Quick Start, Substance Designer Quick Start, and that talks a lot more about substance files and archival substance files, SBSAR. And what that's going to allow me to do is if I drag that into my shelf here, it's going to ask me, where do you want this to go? Now, because it's not a smart material, it's just a material, we can tell it I want it to be go into my base materials, and I want to either import it into my shelf forever or into the project. So every time I load up BattleBot Salt, it'll show up here, or just the current session while I'm in here, and I can forget it any other time. So I'm just going to import it right to my shelf here, and I'll hit import. And there we go. So we've got, that was MW painted rusty steel. Painted rusty steel. Awesome. Boom. So we got all these things in here. And then if I go to my materials tab and then do MW, it'll just sort to all of those things. Beautiful. Okay. Gotcha. Nice. Perfect. Let me get this dirt off here really quick. So this dirt is all over this guy. I don't want that. And I also don't want it. I don't want super muddy looking shiny dirt. I want really roughness. That's what I'm looking for. Metallic. Let me see. Base color. Dirt. Oh, you know what? I need to go to my fill here. So the gradient, the fill layer is controlling that. So if I go out of here and say, you know what? You just control the color. Everything else I want to control through here. So now I can go through here, and it can be shiny dirt, or it can be rough dirt. I don't want my fill controlling that. I want my actual thing up here to controlling that. So I can go in here to my roughness and really just rough that up. Dirt's pretty matte. You don't want to make it metallic dirt. And the height, you can bump up the height just a little bit if you want to. And then we'll go in here, and just again, to keep it simple, I'm going to do add a black mask so it disappears. And then I'm going to right click here, and we're going to go to add a generator, and we could use smart masks, of course. In fact, maybe we will, but I'm going to do MG dirt first and see where that goes. And if you look at MG dirt, you're going to see it loaded in the curvature, aim and occlusion, world space, normal, and position map, all to kind of place that dirt in areas where it might make sense. Now, if I want to see exactly where that dirt's going, if I'm kind of losing it in here, you can alt tap that dirt, and you can see exactly where that dirt is showing up. So we go back into our MG dirt here. And we can say, what do we want to say to this guy? We can also, if we don't like the generator, we can just go ahead and kill that. We're back to our black mask here. And now we can go into our smart masks here. And there's a lot of dirt in here too. So if you wanted to do dirt complex, dirt dry, let's see if they have rust ground. Oh, there's ground dirt. So if we do ground dirt, you're going to see it's a lot of dirt on the bottom. It's kind of like mud splashing up from the feet. So if you drag that onto our mask here, you're going to see he's really dirty on his feet. And if we hit C, we can cycle through the different channels here. So if we go into the roughness map, you're going to see where it's really rough is what the dirt is, and then the visor, of course, too. So the dirt is pretty rough here. And of course, we can also just alt-click this one, and you'll see exactly where this smart mask is going. So it's using that. If we scroll down, it's using MG ground dirt, which is the generator first, and then it's using a grunge map to kind of break that up. And you can turn these on and off and see what it's doing here. So it's adding a little bit more dirt up top. So we hit M, and we toggle that grunge map back on. It's just adding some grunge on there as a linear dodge. So any grunge there is being added to it. The original ground dirt, which is just kind of dirt from the bottom up. So let's just do, you know what I'm going to do? So this paint all instead of metal edge, I'm going to get rid of that. And we're going to try paint old. Just drag that on there. And then we'll need to go in here and invert that. If we can, let's see. Should be able to, there we go. Well, that inverts the texture, which isn't what I really want. Global invert. There we go. So now this is kind of an old paint look. Oops. M here, which is okay. And go in there and dial in the parameters there. Let me look at let me kill Facebook here. But thank you for sending those Axel Chamberlain, sending me the rusty steel. I'm going to drag that on there real quick because I might actually just replace this paint all stuff. I'm not really digging that look. So let's go into our materials here, and we'll do that again, MW. And we'll drag on, that's steel painted. Let's just get rid of all that together. Steel painted. And we got weapon metal on there. Let's try this stuff here. Drag that on and let me do triplanar. Because again, my UVs are garbage. So this gives me a nice, you know, it's got those nice kind of drips going through here. I like this look a lot better just because it's an old, worn out machinery thing. So let me say this dirt here. Oh, you know what? I didn't even finish this. So let's put some dirt on there and I'm going to try and break it up. And we've got the rust and visor fill on there. So let's do this. Oh, and here's paint too, so we can give this one a shot. Let's give, because I kind of like the look of that because I'm thinking I'll be able to break that up. Ooh, I like this one too. Man, these are good ones. Let's see here, paint. I actually like the color better than red. Now, if this was going into a game and it had to be controlled by the player, or it was like red versus blue or something, then that would obviously change. Let me drag this one in here. You know, look at all of them. And again, you can see how easy this is. If I want to do variants, I can do all of them. Ooh, I like this one too. Yeah, all nasty and rusty. That's what I'm talking about. All right. Which one do I want to pick? Oh man, I'm digging that rusty one. I'm digging this one too. Let's see. Let's keep both of these around. Because what I'm thinking is when I go into the paint decals, that might do a little bit too. So let's see, we got paint modifiers in here, so we can change the paint color to a different hue. So it looks like a hue shift there. We can do paint saturation more or less. I'm kind of a big, I think it's fine. We can kind of maybe unsaturate a little bit like it's been sun bleached there. And then we can make the paint either lighter or darker there. Paint amount. We can increase or decrease. Let's see. We can kind of start dialing that paint in. Let me go back. Hold on just a second. And then let's see. Paint amount, rust amount. You can dial that up or down. So very, very robust. Do you have this up anywhere? You want to? Did you put this on Substance Share or anything? I want to make sure that you know, I want to give you credit where credit is due because I am definitely going to use this. This looks way better. So, Masi Milano, Axel Gatti, thank you very much, or Axel Chamberlain, as you're in the chat. I'm going to use this one for now. I might change my mind depending on after the decal painting goes through, but I'm going to stick with that. Let's do that one. That was a fun one. Thank you very much for that. So we've got our base fill layer here. We've got this over it. We've got the weapon over that. And in this weapon one, I want to go ahead and go into the height and make sure that's set to replace. That's good. And that does look a bit chewed up. So what, to this entire folder, I'm going to go into the height here, and I'm just going to take the entire height of this weapon one down. Oh, you know what? Is it? Kind of like that extra rust too. That's like cavity rust almost. The visor looks a little bit out of place. Let me see if I can't. Let's kind of darken that up a little bit. And then the dirt here isn't doing anything because I forgot that we were in the middle of that one. Yeah, I agree, man. I think everybody would get a kick out of these. These are really super good. Thanks again. So, and this is what I love about having a central material team. So, if you watch my GDC 2015 presentation, that was before we had, you know, central materials or anything like that. So it's kind of up to me to go through and make all the stuff on the sandbox team. And I did okay. It was like not good enough basically. But having people who are really interested in doing the materials and setting all that stuff up is such a big help because you know you look like an all-star when you're just dragging in smart materials and assigning where they need to go and exporting. Everybody looks like they're really, really good. And, you know, when the reality is it just takes one person to be really good. And then, you know, if you got that stuff, really, really helps. So I'm going to, and that's part of, you know, in the production pipeline, it makes it look like everything was textured by the same person, very consistent and all that good stuff. So I'm going to take this. So we got that fill layer here. I'm going to take this. Let's get rid of this one here. I'm going to drag this above weapon metal here. And we're going to assign this to definitely that. I kind of liked it on the shoulders too. Definitely on the hands and feet here. These things I'm going to try and keep, because, gears and stuff are going to be constantly oiled and turning. So I'm going to kind of leave those alone here. Let's see if I can't let's put it on there too. Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so that's all been painted up here. And let me go back to where were we? Okay, so we have dirt on there, but it's not showing up because I need to go into my smart masks. And smart masks really are just, let me see if I can find like any of these things. So smart masks. I mean, really any of them you use are probably going to use the same thing. So if I just grab dirt dry, just drag it right on my black mask here. It's basically using the MG mask editor, which is a generator that just has a ton of stuff in it. And then once you dial in those parameters, you can just, let me see, once you have this all done, you can click, man, it's been so long since I've done it. You can save these things, and then it'll save as a smart mask, and then you can either share those or just keep using them over and over again. This is a bit much here, so I'm going to go into the global balance. I'm just going to crank that way down here. And also, it might be a little bit, the dirt might be a little bit dark. I'm going to dial that back up just a bit, and I'm going to take this dirt here. And again, we have that HSL. We're going to crank that lightness up so that the dirt is a little bit light here. Maybe a little less saturated. Okay, it's got some kind of caked on dirt there. And also, I'm going to take that height all the way down. I don't really need that. And I also want to paint in we can do paint in like heat distress or oil. And when I'm doing a lot of weapon work, you always want to go in and like paint oil where you would oil your weapon too. It kind of adds a little bit of interest there. We can also do it on this guy. So we'll put in an oil layer here. We'll call this oil, and the oil is going to affect maybe a little bit of the color, but mostly the roughness here. So we're going to paint in, make it really, really shiny here. If we turn this on and off, you're going to see it's affecting the color. The base color, we can change that to just a dark material here, but we don't want it to look like it's covered in like crude oil or anything. So what I'm going to do is this base color, with this base color selected, I'm going to take this and just turn that so it's just kind of on a little bit. And then we're going to add a black mask, and then in the oil here we're going to go to our brushes, and we'll just take our Dirt 2 brush, and we'll just, and since this guy is pretty much symmetrical, I'm going to turn on my symmetry line here, and we'll just do it on both sides. Now, even though his UVs aren't symmetrical, we can go ahead and make it symmetrical. So I'm just going to paint in some oil here. Let me go to Dirt 1 here, see if that'll help a little bit, so we can kind of just, where things are generally oiled, you can kind of just go through and kind of paint. And you can also, if you wanted to, you'll find yourself like, well, I'm kind of oiling where cavity maps are or occlusion maps are. You can kind of use those if you'd like. But I've found that just going in there and kind of painting it up is fine too. And also breaking up your roughness map is really helpful for kind of selling the overall look of things. If everything has the same roughness, you're kind of missing out on a lot of the fun look of this stuff, So we'll go in and paint some oil on his joints. And then down on his wrist here. We're doing on time. Okay. And again, once this is all done, I will be able to apply all of this to any character we end up sending through here, which is awesome. So it'll save me a lot of time if we get something we like. And then we'll just paint. Oh, and I didn't want to pressure you, Axel, into sharing it if you didn't want to. Like if you don't want me to use this, or you don't want to share it on Substance Share, that's fine too. I can just use it as a demo. I don't have to you know, pressure you into putting it up somewhere you don't want to. I just think it's really good. You did a really good job. Really good looking stuff, man. So if you were open to it, I'm sure people would appreciate it. But if not, no big deal either. So we've got this here. And I guess around the handle we're fine. And around the top here, I'm not going to oil that. It's probably not going to be oiled. Okay, so part of the problem is this base metal here, which I don't mind having kind of semi-shiny here, but it's a little bit plain Jane. So over this, we'll call this, let's see if we can grunge this up a little bit here. So I'm going to go into my fill layer here, and only I want to affect the roughness and the height. I'm going to go into my grunges, and we'll just drop in, I don't know, doesn't really matter. We'll drop in grunge concrete into the height. Whoa. And we'll go into the height here, and we will also take this and drop it way down. So we can just kind of just dial in a little bit, and we will, let's say even 1 maybe. And we'll change that to triplanar projection and UV scale. Crank it up or down. We don't want to crank it up. Just to kind of give it a little bit of a dinged up thing going on. And then on the roughness here, we'll go in and we'll grab. And I just picked that grunge at random. That's probably not the best grunge to use. Concrete, do they have a... Let's do grunge 14. Is that going to let me plug it in? And if that's not sharp enough for you, you can also throw on a sharpened filter on the height, but that's fine with me. And you can also go in here and let's see, are we tiling? You could also do a fill for each individual one of these things, because what I want to do is take my roughness here, drop that in as well, and then we can do and if you want to, you can also throw at the very top here. We'll try a roughness breakup where I'll take like maybe grunge 10 or 11, and we'll drop that into the roughness here. And I'm going to take the roughness and just crank this down. And we can also try maybe some of the finishing filters here, which would be metal galvanized, brushed linear, grainy, grinded. There you go. You can start seeing some of these things. They probably aren't going to be that much use for me, but we'll go ahead and leave that alone. I did not re-UV it. These are the crappy auto UVs. However, when I do go back and UV this thing, I'll be able to just drag and drop or go again into edit project config and just bring it back in. Then anything I've painted on here will just show up. So yes, still the crappy UVs, but that's okay. Let me see. Let me go and let's grab some decals I can paint on here a little bit. Characters, bots, mining, painter. There we go. So I have some JPEGs I'm going to drag in here, and we're going to call these alphas or textures. We'll do alphas because we can just paint through alphas, and then we'll import these into the project. And that reminds me, let's just go ahead and save. Now this is a little bit of a futuristic, that our Destine. I'm going to do this one here. So if I use this alpha, let's go to my brushes here, and we'll do default hard. We'll just choose that brush here, and we'll do another, we'll go below the dirt, and we'll add another fill layer here. We'll call this decal. So this decal, we'll just leave it white for now. We'll go ahead and add a black mask, and then we can just kind of stamp some stuff on here. We can use projection to do this, or we can just use the brush alpha, which I think in this case we're probably going to have to use the brush alpha. Let me see what else we have. Painter. Let me do a search for all the JPEGs in this folder. I thought I had more. JPEG. Nope, that's it. Okay, we'll use project for this. If we did want to use the alpha, it's pretty simple. So if we go over here to our alphas panel, or I'm sorry, not using projection, you can go through here. Let's see if there's any cool ones we want to stamp on here. Like, excuse me, excitement, or X. Radioactive, that's a good one. So what we can do is we can drag this into our grayscale map. And then I think we should just be able to like stamp through here. Usually you can see through it though. You know what? Maybe I need to put it, sorry, it's been a while. Let's throw that into the alpha shape here. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So now, depending on what your little painted thing is, and right now it's just white, we can go through here and kind of stamp these things on. Or if you wanted to, you could brush them on. But in this case, stamping makes a little bit more sense. So now this thing has a little lever for a little hatch. So you probably need to tell people, hey, if you're going to be opening this thing up, be prepared for a little dose of radiation. So we'll go ahead and use our mouse to stamp on that, because it has this little size thing here is pin pressure. So if you have pin pressure on, it'll go thick to thin depending on your tablet pressure here. But I just want to stamp at the exact size I see it, so that's when I would use my mouse, because that's like 100%. Or you could turn that off. It's kind of up to you. So we'll do that. And of course, it doesn't have to stay this color. It's non-destructive. It's just a white area in this mask here that we're painting in, basically. So if we want to, we can go through here. We can add a little bit of height to it if we want. We can really bump it out or not bump it out if we want to. You can go through here and change the color and the roughness. So if you want to make this maybe like a yellow here, or an orange, I like that like kind of nasty old orange. So just kind of a hint of like, hey, this guy's pretty radioactive, but if you get within 25 feet of them, you're probably going to get radiation too, because I don't think that container's really holding that shit in anymore. And then if you also want to, so we painted that on. However, what you can do is you can do, instead of doing that, let's do a, we'll do add a black mask, just make it black. And then we'll do add a generator. No, we want to just add a fill layer. And in this fill layer, we will put in a grunge. That's fine. Whatever. We'll put in a grunge. So now everywhere this decal yellow is going to be kind of grungy. But we'll change that. I'm trying to think the best way to do this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a paint, and we're going to move this paint down. So with this grunge, I'm going to be painting in white, and this grunge I want to blend with that paint layer as screen, or wait, as multiply. Let's do that. Because the screen's going to add, but I want to multiply. There we go. So now you don't see anything at all, but as soon as I go in here and stamp white, it's going to multiply that grunge onto that white, and that'll kind of just automatically go through and grunge that up for me. And of course, if you want to, since you're just painting this on, all you need to do is you can also go in here to your brushes, and you can go into your dirt brush, and if you paint in white, it'll add paint. If you paint in black, it'll subtract. So instead of doing a grunge, you could go in here and just manually go through here and like chew up some of these edges in here. Or you can use procedural, or you can use a mix of both. And remember, you can always go back to that base properties of this thing and, you know, let's crank up that a little bit. If you want to make it super shiny, you can. Or if you don't want it to affect the roughness at all, say if for some reason you don't want to, you can just turn roughness off, and it will completely just inherit any roughness values through there. Yes, this is still the auto UV. In fact, but you can see, even though it's still the really crappy auto UVs here, if I go to 2D only, you know, we're painting that decal, and oh, wow, it happened to fit right on that shell right there. So you could take this into Photoshop and, you know, paint right on that decal. But generally speaking, I'm just painting across seams, and this thing has horrible seams. But again, it's just for preview purposes to get in the game quickly. However, if I ever do have nicer UVs, I can just pull it right back through, and everything I've dumped at this point is perfectly fine. Excuse me. So we got this here. Let's give him a name or something to identify him. So let's go into our projection mode here. We'll give it, kind of digging that decal for the radioactive. I like the properties of it, but we'll do another fill layer here, and we'll call this text. Now the text I'm not going to be able to stamp, but I can use as a projection through there. And I can, let me see. Let me think about that, because that's a good point. I could paint on, yeah, let me see if I can put something on here that'll make sense. And again, this is kind of concepty too, where I'm just like, I don't know, maybe I could paint on like a big skull or something. I don't know. And I'm always painting skulls and everything. I don't know why. But I could manually paint it in, but I can also stamp a decal. Let's see. So we'll do add a black mask, and we'll do text. So in order to use this text, I'm going to go into this projection mode up here, which is projection. I forget the number key. I think 1, 2, 3 is the key for that. And then that's going to give us access to this grayscale area here. And then we'll go into our alphas, and we'll drag in this text sheet that I just made. It has just a bunch of gobbledygook on it. So we'll drag that in, and now that this is on there, we can move our guy behind the text. And you can also go into your camera here and change to an orthographic view, so it just goes straight forward. So if we want to stamp something directly on him orthographically, or from the top or the bottom, it'll be a lot easier to do that. Now you could also, if your UVs were nice, you could go to 2D only, and you could stamp straight through just to your UVs, because your UVs are flat. So anything you put on here, so for example, if we paint ENG right onto our UVs here, and then we'll get rid of the projection, go back into brush, and then we'll go back to our 3D only. You're going to see that painted it straight across here. And in fact, that would be the best deal, because right now that arm's getting in the way, so that might be kind of difficult to get to, but you can always go back to your UVs and paint on that. We'll go ahead and do that, and we'll do 3D only. And we're in orthographic view, so I can kind of snap to the front view. We'll go back to our projection here. And if you hold down S, if you hold down S or Control, if you leave it held down, it'll give you like, oh, Control plus right click changes the tool size, and up and down changes the hardness, and that kind of thing. So those are your shortcuts. If you hold down S, those are the shortcuts for your projection. So S and right click, you can zoom the stencil in and out. And then S and Shift, S and left click will spin it, and you can hold down Shift, and that'll kind of snap it. Middle will pan. And then what else we got? Pan, rotate, snap, rotate, and then Control S to save project. So we can go ahead and paint through here. Let's do, we can give him like a 99-3 here. And if we also had an alpha in here, we could paint other stuff too. So just for the heck of it, I'm going to call him, let's see how big I want this text on here. So we'll just go ahead and just paint this right through on here. And let's see if I want to, and again, I'm going to chew the heck out of this text here. So I can kind of just go through here, and we can kind of give them like a little serial number or something up here. Oops, bad job. There we go. And okay, so that's good enough for now. So I'm going to go back into my brushes here, and we can either go into erase, which is 2, and you can bring in your erase brush, and you can just erase out where you didn't want stuff, or you can go into your text here, and you're just in your brush menu, and then you can just paint in black where you may have overstepped your bounds just a bit. Again, you can throw a grunge on here. I probably should have turned that camera to catch that so we could project it straight onto here. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. So I'm going to go back to my brushes. Brushes here. We'll go to default hard. Let's paint that out, and then we'll do projection mode here. You know, put Sam on there instead. If I want to change the hardness, it's right click up, and that'll go ahead and make this a super hard brush here. And again, even though I'm painting this on destructively, it'll be non-destructive if I ever update this guy and I haven't moved his position or his orientation. So we'll go back to brush. We'll paint in black. There we go. So we've got some text drawn on there. We've used alpha stamping. Let's go ahead and in this text, we can put on a paint layer, which will be a little bit less destructive. So if we want to keep the text nice and sharp, but we also want to go through it with like a dirt brush here, we can go through and be like, just knock this stuff back, and you know, he's been old, so we can just kind of just brush all this out. And again, you can tell I'm like kind of painting over seams as well, so you can kind of tell in the UVs. It's not quite as nice as it could be, but you know, you get the point, I think. And it doesn't have to be white text, obviously. We're just kind of, let's go up here to the flow here. Oh, it's at 100. Jeez. So let's go ahead and change that text to, you know, just sample that decal. Now, because we did it on a paint layer, I can toggle that paint layer on and off, and you can kind of see like, oh, you know what? The text is still there. I didn't erase the text or paint over in black. I did it on a paint layer, so I can still go in here if I think I went a little overboard, and I can still, ooh, you know what? That's a good point. It's a little more destructive than I thought. I mean, I can go ahead and just make a new paint layer, or trying to think of a way. And then we'll go back to black. There we go. And have those show a little bit better. Oh, I guess we can also go out of orthographic view here. Perspective view, back it out. There we go. And we'll just do an overall. Let's get that sharper dirt in here. To avoid those stretching, there's the brush alignment in the option. Oh, that's right. In the brush options over here, you can go to, let's see, this tangent wrap. You can do camera based, you can have it wrap, and you can also have it planar. So that'll help as you're kind of brushing, and it kind of like skews the surface and it kind of starts stretching back. You can change those options there. Thank you for reminding me of that. I think he's good enough for decals and stuff. Let's see what else we want to do. Oh, let's go back to my alphas here really quickly, and let's just try some stuff here. So I'm going to go back to my decal layer here onto the paint. Did we put this on a paint layer? Yeah, so we have the paint and then we have the grunge over it. So let's just try some stuff really quickly. Let's do a giant X here. Whoa. Let's change that back to brush. Default hard. Let's see here. Don't know if I want to make him. I mean, I guess I could just paint decal stuff too. And I could also paint oil streaks and all that good stuff. Because sometimes it's just kind of fun to paint stuff. Let's do that. I'm going to duplicate this decal off, and I'm going to get rid of these paint layers here, and then just add a black mask. Let's just try, we'll go into our brushes here, and we'll start with the default hard brush, and we'll turn on symmetry, and we can try just, let me see if there's anything that kind of jumps out at me. You can also hold down shift, and if you tap and then hold down shift, it'll just do a straight line. So that comes in handy as well. So you can try and just do, let's see if we can't just, and I kind of missed that grunge. So we'll do add a paint layer, and then we'll add a fill layer, and on this fill layer we'll make it multiply, and in that multiply we'll put in a grunge. And now as we paint, it'll kind of grunge it up automatically. Trying to see if anything kind of, again, jumps out at me, because I can, it's sometimes fun to just kind of paint these things on. So we'll do alphas, and I'll just get a basic shape in here. Maybe this one here. And you know what, let's go add a symmetry mode. So just really quickly, like somebody went through and kind of marked them up. Now I'm going to go back through on this paint layer, and then we'll go back to our brushes here, and we'll reset the default hard back to its default, and then we'll drag that in black, and then you can go through here and just kind of get rid of anything that's bothering you. So I'm going to keep the line work. I think it's okay. And we'll see if anything jumps out at me. It almost makes it look like he's made out of spare parts. Like, you know, somebody took a 57 Chevy that had decals painted on it, or an old milk van or something, and just repurpose the metal. And these I don't mind too terribly much on his feet here. These are a bit much. I'm going to see if I can knock these back with a little bit of dirt here, or just get rid of them completely, and I can just go through and yeah, exactly. He's seen better days. And again, that doesn't even have to stop here. I can go through and add like little LED lights and stuff, depending on the game needs. If this is going to go into a game, if it, you know, what it needs to message to the player, we can just go back through the original design and all that good stuff. Yeah, Substance is really good. In fact, they had a GDC walkthrough presentation of doing this really cool face and how to kind of paint it up in layers. And they also have texturing XYZ kind of plugged in. You can use some of that stuff. So yeah, definitely. In fact, if you go to, I'll show you one example that I did. Go to my YouTube channel, playlists, and underneath, Commander. If you click through, I have the painter walkthrough. Skin and rendering is number 3 on this one. And you can kind of step through and see how I did the Commander stuff. And I can open it up in here too if you guys want to take a look at that. Yeah, and you know, wood and bark and stuff too, definitely, for sure. Let's see, we got decal copy here. Let me just go through my default. these have, if somebody went through and spray painted on him, I guess I could tag him. I don't know if I want to do that. Or like I said, I can just put like a big, somebody came through and just made a skull on him. Now you've got little, really changes this personality quite a bit. If we're gonna do that, let's try, let's see, okay, we'll put this as just our base layer here. And then we'll also go in here to our spray, paint spray. And let's see if we can get like some overspray a little bit. And I'm trying to remember, I did, oh, you know what'd be great to bring in here? Hold on just a second. Oh, this will be so good. Well, maybe not now that I say that, but Pixelogic has some, or they used to have some paint alphas that were great for this type of thing. I did this on the Commander where it has on the end of his gun arm, I put something in Italian for like bang, and I have exclamation points like they painted it on, and then have like paint, like he went in with a brush and just slapped it on there. So we can do paint. There we go. Let me just drag in like just a bunch of these things. And I'm just going to bring these in for the session here. Can I do import all? Can I say all alpha? Do I have to do this one by one? And then just the current session. Okay, so now that I have this, let's go ahead and change this to white. So this is our, you know what? Let me put this on a separate layer because the decal stuff I want it to look like it's from, let's repaint this real quick. The decal stuff I want it to look like it's kind of from another machine, like an old farm tractor that was repurposed. But for this one, I'm going to duplicate this off. And then on this one, we'll do add a paint. And you know what? We don't even need that grunge for now. So for the first amount of paint we're going to do, we're going to go into our brushes here. And instead of the hard one, let's do Sharpie. And let's see if we can make it a little bit smaller. Well, maybe not. Let's try here. Like somebody came in with a farm paintbrush here. Yes, you're right. Creating procedural materials for substance painter is a really good use for that. In fact, all the stuff you see in your materials and in your generators and stuff you can make in Substance Designer. In my YouTube channel, I talk about different ways to do that and kind of bring them in, or maybe it was my painter one, I forget. But it's a little more node based. This one's much more artist friendly. Substance Designer is a little more intense, but certainly don't be scared of it. Like if you can go through my quick start, it takes you through a lot of stuff, and the videos are pretty straightforward. It's really one of those programs where you really get a good, like when you do stuff in Substance Designer, you really feel smart. I don't know a better way to put that. I always felt good after getting out of Substance Designer because it's like, man, you can start really simple and then build just really, really complex stuff, and it's really fulfilling. I wish I did it more. I don't really do it anymore. Let's call this skull, and we'll make this paint white. This will be a little bit fresher paint here. And in fact, we're going to drag this to the top underneath the dirt, though. We're going to give this a little bit of height. It's going to be like thick paint. And I kind of want it to cover up that other height too, so it's going to be sitting on top of everything. We're going to do replace. There we go. And then I'm going to drop this height down because that's a little bit much. Let's save this real quick. Yeah, if you've never used them before, that's a good point. It is kind of difficult to know what exactly those programs do. This is doing something weird. It must be really inheriting something from... Dirt's fine, oil's fine. Something underneath must be driving this thing crazy with its height. I think it's getting some weird height info from the weapon stuff. What's this weapon metal doing? No, it's not the weapon stuff. Let's see, is it this? No, my base metal, that's what's doing it. Maybe, huh? Maybe not. Let me try. I'm going to put this into a folder real quick. And we will call this replace height skull all skull height now it's behaving normally. Okay, sorry, I must be stupid. Okay, so we've got the paint on there, and now what we can also do is I'm going to duplicate this one off because it's got all the settings that I like, and then we'll add a black mask here, and I'm just going to keep this as a black mask, but under the grayscale for my default hard brush, I'm going to go into my alphas here, and we're going to drop in some of those paint splats. Oops, I'm sorry, not the grayscale, the alpha. There we go. So we can kind of just drop in some paint splats, and I'm just going to do a levels. For some reason, those decals are like kind of gray, but I can just go in here and over crank it anyway. So if I go and add a levels to this, no matter how, if I go in here and let's like put some paint splatter across here. Let's try this one here. Yeah, so we can do this paint splatter here, and then on this levels, I'm just going to make it so that it is super contrasty. So no matter if I don't tap it so hard, which it should, the flow's all the way up, but yeah, these are kind of gray. I can kind of force it into, you can also rotate this thing around and kind of do a little paint splatter here. So you can kind of give it a little splattery little look. And you can also go through here and either alpha in some drips or just go in and paint drips as well. That'll be good enough here. Okay, so let's go ahead and grunge this up just a bit overall. So on the folder up here, I can go add a white mask, and that'll make sure everything's cool. And then I can go in there with my brush and just kind of grunge it out just a little bit. I'm going to take out some of the color and some of the height. There we go, dirt 2. And we'll say you are painting black. Oh boy. Yeah, it's doing something really weird. Skull, and I just want to not have... Oh, you know what? Let me turn the flow way down. We got streaks in here. Let's try sandpaper. Yes, there is, and there's a welding material too. That's a good point. Let me go and weld some of these seams up. Let's do that. Oh, and there's another thing too in here. I don't use that much, but there's... Oh boy. Where'd they go? They weren't brushes, they were tools. So you can make tools that have multiple kind of materials and height and stuff assigned. So as you, let's just do a empty layer here. Back in our brush. Bullet impact. you can kind of just, you know, pop, 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 pop. You can do bullets all over this thing based on the tool here. And when we get into stitches and stuff on the military guy we're doing, we'll get a little bit more into some of the other brushes too. But there's a weld tool you can use, which is kind of cool. Let's see. And you can do a manual welding brush as well, but this is just kind of a cool way to kind of go through here, and if you want to weld up some seams, which this guy has some opportunity for, I'm trying to think of. Let's see. Yeah, something is definitely worth buying, I think, and they usually have pretty good deals too. Every once in a while, but even as what you're getting for the price is pretty stellar. Their whole pack and stuff. Let me see if I can do. Let me go to my brushes here. We've got just a layer. If we go over here to artistic, and we do add a little bit of height. Got this layer 1. Let's do layer. If we're just doing height, I think that'll just use the underlying metal. And you can kind of go through here and kind of just weld up some of this stuff. Little stack of dimes thing going on. Now we can also do heat distress and stuff. So we can kind of go through. And the cool thing about this stuff too is it's non-destructive. So it's like if you did this in ZBrush and you're like, okay, I'm going to weld it. And then you get in here, or you do stitches or any of that stuff. And that's why you'll see me doing stitches, not in ZBrush, probably on my military guys, because it's so much less destructive and sharper to do in texture than it is to, this is kind of a sloppy weld, but. Oh, that's true. Yeah, they do have that rent-to-own thing where you just pay $19.99 a month, and it's not like every other thing out there where it's $99 a month for the rest of your life. It's $19.99 a month until you pay it off. And then I need to mirror this guy. I totally jacked him up. So when I go into the FBX, I'll just mirror those pieces over. Oops, amateur hour. See, little inside, little view of the inside of how crappy I am as a professional artist here. Put some little weld seams here. So some farmer went through and was like, weld it up. Now these welds aren't going to be overly, it's not going across that seam too well, but it's still just an indication. Kind of just weld along the bottom here. Thank you for reminding me to weld. That is an excellent addition to this type of thing, because yeah, somebody's going to go through here. They're not just going to put two perfectly machined pieces together. They're going to go through and just like weld it up. So you can, and we're actually just making it look like it's welded under the paint. They just painted over it. Yeah, and it's not terrible that it's, you know, a little bit off whack and off kilter here. This paint is still kind of a little much for me. I'm going to go back here to skull. I'm going to drop the base color down just a hint. Whoops. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, for bolts and stuff too. You know, they probably would be looking to save some money because he is in some rough shape here. Anything else I need to weld? Let's see. Yeah, if it looks too machined, it's probably a good, yeah, here. It's probably a good candidate for some welding seams here. Now, I kind of am doing this part destructively, which I shouldn't be. If it's just height that I'm painting in here, what I should do is just go to a fill layer here, and then we'll call this welds. Let's try that again. And if we just, you know, we can crank up the height, doesn't really matter. We'll add a black mask, and then in the white, or in the area here, we'll go back to our weld brush, which is, again, just this artistic 4. I think I got this from Christoph Desi, if I had to guess. I don't really remember, but it seems right he's gearhead. He knows about that stuff. But so here we got the height, and then we can just go through here, and it's like, oh, we're welding, and it's like, you know what, that weld isn't high enough. We can go back here to the fill layer and just crank it up. Or if we want to go inside, it's fine, but you have all of that control. So it's a little bit better. But oh well, just FYI, something to keep in mind. So we've got this guy going. Seems like there's something else I wanted to do that I don't really remember. I brought in the paint here. I've got this. He's pretty stained up. I think he's good enough. So let's go ahead and save this